because in a way I feel like, you know, a lot of the characters I've played, which a lot of them I guess have been bad guys.
Which is funny because on Vanderpump Rules you're kind of the good guy.
Well, thanks.
Not kind of. At least from the viewers.
Yeah. No, I know. I feel like it's kind of become my niche, and I feel really comfortable in those shoes, so to speak. But I feel like you just got to start agreeing with that person, because I mean, yes, we all have, we all sort of have these wide variety of thoughts depending upon what situation we're in, who we're around, what day it is, But it's just those people obviously are way more heavily one-sided, I guess. A lot of the characters I've played, narcissistic, sociopaths, just bipolar,
All things that help you on Vanderpump Rules.
Exactly. All things I picked up from that show. Yeah.
These gays, they're trying to murder me.
What do I think of her?
Yes?
I don't think of her.
Read about that in the New York fucking Post.
Welcome back to Watch What Happens Live with Andy Cohen. I'm your host, Andy Cohen. Man, how are we all feeling about the 2012 election? Isn't that so crazy? President Obama in for a second term. That's what's up. I'm here today with a brand new reality star. He is the star bartender of the hottest club in West Hollywood. It's Tom Sandoval. Hey, Andy, man. It's just, so sick to be here. I'm so fucking excited. it's so fucking awesome. Yeah, man, it's really cool to have you, too. Hey, just a question. Will you take your shirt off for me? Yeah, man, Andy, of course. I'll take my shirt off for you, however you want. Yeah, come on, everybody. Shot skis. Okay, Tom, I hear you've, definitely got us a shot ski of all shot skis today. Yeah, man, this is some tequila reposado, which is a huge thing at Sir. It's our most popular. Yeah, I'm very well acquainted with the reposado, man. So Tom, tell us, on your new show, Vanderpump Rules, tell us what the vibes are. Yeah, man, it's just a really sick show. Literally, we're all models, we're all actors, we're the hottest people in West Hollywood, and we work at the hottest bar in West Hollywood, Sexy Unique Restaurant. Yeah, I'm just wondering, at this place, Sexy Unique Restaurant, are the guys making out ever? Yeah, man, I see guys making out with each other all the time. It's so sick. Okay, no, let me rephrase that question. Do the bartenders ever, bump willies? Hey, man, this is Hollywood, man. I've done a lot of jobs.
Keep going.
I've done a lot. I've done a lot of jobs, man. I've really made it in this place, and I've gotten to where I am through blood, sweat, and tears. And semen, am I right?
Welcome everybody to Eating for Free. Oh my god. The podcast recording. Andy and Tom, by the way, just really quick, have such similar character voices inside of me. Tom is yeah, current Tom is yeah, man, Ariana's so fucking disgusting. And then Andy's what's up, everybody? It's Andy Cohen. So it's hard to mix them two. But I was playing a younger Tom Sandoval there, more of a that's what's up, man. It's so fucking sick.
I haven't yet like leaned into my voice. But anyways, you're here today on Eating for Free, the podcast recording live from the absolute edge of Tom Sandoval's sanity. My name is local Tom Sandoval tormentor, Joan Summers.
And this is your local Watch What Happens Live attendee, Matthew Lawson.
I'm
the one audience member cheering on, like...
You're like, Joan hasn't taken her mood stabilizers today.
I'm in for the show.
She's starting. Your guys are in for a treat this specific week here on the podcast because we're doing a bit of an intermission. I'm calling it an intermission because I can do whatever I want. Honestly, fuck all of you. No, it's an intermission because we stopped last week right at the apex of Lisa Vanderpump on Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. She was on top of the world. She was on top of the Bravo rankings. She just got her brand new spinoff called Vanderpump Rules that was set to kind of market the shows on Bravo in a new direction for a new audience. They were young, sexy, hip bartenders. And they all have stories, right? They all have lives and tales to tell of how they got cast on that show. They were all mildly niche Los Angeles D-list actors and music aficionados and local...
Aspiring. It's all very aspiring.
Local bleach job customers and frequent interviewers about being John Mayer's girlfriend, aka Sheena Shea, but none of them have really made the original cast quite the impact on the cultural conscience, the fear of the nation, the hearts and minds of women across America and the world, really. Quite like Tom Sandoval. He is a figure that is, as he said, more hated than a guy who's an actual rapist, which is his words, not ours. And I just have been finding myself perpetually returning to him as sort of the beating, bloody, decayed heart of this series. And, you know, we could go a lot of places for these next set of episodes. And I was thinking that I wanted to do sort of like a one episode or a couple episodes, sort of like breaking down who these people were. But as I kind of tore into their lives a little bit more, none of them really grabbed me quite the way that Tom did. Because more than any of them, he is a man that is made by his own myth. You know, I interviewed somebody today who I can't say just yet who they were, but in the interview we were chatting and they brought up those like Instagram live gurus that are like, you will find your keys today. I am praying to the spirits that you are going to receive blessings in abundance, right? Tom Sandoval is very much that throughout his life, in that like from the second he steps onto the scene, he is telling people, I am going to be famous. I'm going to be somebody. I am going to matter. I am going to make it. I am going to do whatever I need to do to get my name out there and let it be known that I am Tom Sandoval and I will live for fucking ever. And that is deeply, deeply, deeply fascinating to me. I mean, you know,
and very powerful.
It's powerful because when we go through a little bit of what we have unearthed about him in this particular episode, I think that it will probably have the same effect on all of you that it had on us. So I'm very excited. Like, more than any episode we've done recently, this one is just something that has really been living in my brain since I wrote it. It's very, very, very interesting to me.
I do feel like after going through Tom Sandoval's early years, I'm like already confident to say like he is the center of the show.
No.
I mean, before even the scandal
I don't
at
even
all,
think he's the center of the show. I think he's the center of the universe. Like...
Well, I mean, like, as we will get into, you know.
I think that we are all born from Tom Sandoval's consciousness. Like, you know, like...
We're just NPCs in this grand open world.
Actually, no. I lied. Let me retract that statement. Let me make it feminist. I believe that before there was anything, before time, before the concept of concepts, there was Kristen Dowdy. And from Kristen Dowdy as sort of the mother of all creation, from her head sprung Tom Sandoval, much
Not her
like
rib?
no, from her brain. sprung Tom Sandoval, like in Greek mythology. And just like the Titans of Greek myth, their children were set to usurp them and set to topple their reign. And through trickery and deceit and lies and all sorts of ancient Greek crimes against women, Tom Sandoval has sort of usurped the Titan's place and now reigns supreme in Olympus, I think, is really
and much
what
like
this
the Greek
episode
people,
is about.
And much like the Greek people, we're here to learn our lessons.
Yeah,
from these tragedies.
we're here to
This
watch.
is a parable for our time.
We're here to watch the skies, and every time thunder, lightning cracks, we say, a sex crime just happened somewhere in the world.
Me reading the constellations.
Yeah. So, moving on from Greek mythology, which is, again, there's so many things. I mean, when I watch this with my friends, we all are talking about like Shakespeare, like how Vanderpump Rules is Shakespeare, Vanderpump Rules is Greek mythology, Vanderpump Rules is the very first story that was ever written. Like, but besides that, Matthew, how have you been doing? How's your life? How's everything happening for you before we dive right in?
Why are you going to do a mental health check-in with me?
Mental health check-in.
Tear into Tom Sandoval's psyche.
Yeah. Mental health check-in. As your
I'm
HR
doing good.
representative
I'm
at
doing
Eating for
good.
Free Enterprises, it's only natural that I ask.
Well, I'm so happy we're circling back to this conversation.
Yeah.
Doing good, living life, living loud, loving.
You're living La Vida Loca.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice.
That's what we're doing.
Okay. Well, that's cool.
We're vibing. How about you?
I was waiting for you to ask. I was like, is there anything else you want to say? I'm good. I'm fab. I had a busy week. Have you ever had those weeks? I mean, I was traveling for work this weekend. And have you ever had those weeks where, again, the week just bleeds into the weekend, bleeds into the next week, and you're like, I don't remember the last time I sat down, I say, having played 4 hours of The Witcher today.
That's work. Okay, let's be honest.
it's work.
I'm playing
It's
Death
work.
Stranding, and that's a full-time job.
That is a full-time job. I'm sorry. That is a full-time job. No, I really am just happy we're getting this out of the way today. All of our work is done. We have nothing else to talk about because Final Fantasy VII Rebirth comes out tomorrow.
Oh,
and
good God.
I'm just
You're about
wanting
to
you all
be
to know
so annoying.
if this podcast takes a massive dip in quality over the next 2 or 3 weeks, it is because I am playing Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and
That makes a lot of sense.
doing everything I possibly can to make Barrett and Cloud kiss. So just know that. Okay. Speaking of someone who's probably never played Final Fantasy VII, he was too cool for video games back in St. Louis because he was making out with girls and taking pictures of himself. This is Tom Sandoval's life. This is the Sandoval Scaries. Welcome, everybody, to Vanderpump Rules, the intermission. So,
Sandoval Scaries is what I call my sleep paralysis demon. Hovers over my body every morning.
what was sort of the impetus to this episode, back when I was sort of like formulating the second half of our Vanderpump Rules series, was a profile that dropped in the New York Times. You all have probably read it by now. You all have talked about it. You all have certainly
DM'd us
about it. Yeah. That's one thing I will say about being sort of like a Bravo adjacent podcaster, and also just podcasters is like
the hurricane of news.
Yeah, I feel like we
always
all
orbiting us.
We all sort of get like caught up in like our greater podcasting social circle, like talking about stuff to each other. But then because our jobs are talking about Bravo, it's not like with your other friends where you can send them the news that like Erica Jane's court case against Marco Marco's court case against Erica Jane is proceeding, and the judge dropped her motion to dismiss. Tell people that as if it's like information that they haven't heard yet, right? Because all of our friends have Bravo podcasts, it seems like. So like, I texted Carrie O'Donnell of Sexy Nick Podcast, and I was like, "Oh my God, did you see the lawsuit that Leah McSweeney just brought about Andy Cohen?" And it's always like, yes, I saw. Or my other favorite one is when either of us will be like, and even with you and I, will be like, oh, we talked about that today on the podcast.
Oh, yeah. I spent like 40 hours researching.
It's like, oh,
already,
yeah,
but
right. This is literally our job. So I am not telling you new information. So let's talk about this profile. I want to start here because it's interesting to sort of see what he has become. And as classic Eating for Free fashion, jump all the way back to the beginning, much like Bravo producers also, when they do a flash forward into a flashback for the seasons.
I can't stand that trope, but we're going to do it on the show because we do it the right way.
We do it the right way. So
you may wonder how we got here. And it's always like on a random episode where they start with the screaming to telegraph that you have to watch a bunch of boring shit before you see the cool scene you just saw. Like,
yeah, they go back and it's like Allie and James walking on a median in LA, and you're like, oh.
My favorite will be like this, when it'll be like, I fucking hate you. Oh my God. Yeah, James, like, I fucking hate you too.
And a lot of like blurs and montages.
And then 4 hours earlier. And it's like, bitch, you couldn't have just let it play out. There's more dramatic suspense that way. Why are you spoiling it? It's
actually more interesting. I can't stand it. It usually means it's not good. It usually means it's not worth it.
Exactly. So we are going to talk about this profile, and I'm going to read directly from it. And so I want to give full credit to the writer who did a fabulous job. I'm usually not one for profiles. I generally tend to like interviews because, you know, I like being a little bit direct. Sometimes I can't stand the editorializing, but Irina Alexander, who wrote this, How Tom Sandoval Became the Most Hated Man in America, did a fabulous job with this profile. So credit where it is due. This was a fun read and has really caused a lot of conversations in my life. So, in addition to being invited to the White House Correspondents' Dinner and to compete on Dancing with the Stars, Ariana Madix landed ads with Duracell batteries, Bic razors, Uber Eats, and Lay's chips, as well as a starring role on Chicago and Broadway this winter, which I saw famously and was the worst theater production I've ever seen. Everyone around it, this is the thing. Everyone around Ariana was a professional, entertaining Broadway performer.
Yeah.
She didn't quite connect in the same way. So Sandoval, meanwhile, became the most reviled man in America and the butt of a million jokes. Jennifer Lawrence made fun of his skin. Amy Schumer called him a narcissist. One of the hosts of The View called him the Donald Trump of ex-boyfriends.
Okay.
And Sandoval has been just here in the valley trying to process it all. Quote, I feel like I got more hate than Danny Masterson, and he's a convicted rapist. So this is something that's very interesting here is, you know, a lot of things have been pulled from this, and I'm going to come out and say something controversial and brave. We have a tote bag that we used to sell that said, I'm going to say something so controversial and so brave. And I'm going to say it, and I am going to be hated for it. And you are going to feel triggered by it as a listener of this podcast. I hope not. Maybe we have like not yet, you know, fully like lost you to the worms that happen when you watch Bravo. I think part of this podcast process is a vaccination effort against those worms. But I think a lot of the reaction to what Tom is saying in this is because it is less about what he is saying being perceived as offensive. Because I genuinely think a lot of the reaction to this was sort of like performative signaling of like, I can't believe he said this, right?
Yeah.
Like,
it's
oh my
like
God.
too easy.
Like, oh, like, you know, it's like sort of like when people will interview Donald Trump and then he says something ridiculous. And then everyone gets to say, I can't believe Donald Trump said this ridiculous thing. And we all get to have a 24-hour news cycle about it.
I can't do it anymore.
As someone who lived through that news cycle as a professional journalist covering politics, I will tell you it is exhausting and useless, right? Because there's always going to be something new to say.
Yeah.
Lazy. And it's just like that, right? Like, it is very easy to get someone stupid to say something stupid. And so I think a lot of the reaction to it was, again, sort of positioning for the social timelines and these Bravo accounts that capitalize on these pull quotes from things are not your friends, one, and they are not activists, and they are not moralists, and they are not philosophers, and they are not people with sort of a firm compass on what is right and wrong. They are people that are clipping things to get you to be angry so that you comment.
It's regurgitation.
Like, share, subscribe, and feed the machine that keeps them paid and also keeps the attention economy going. And I think if you really listen to what he is saying, it is extremely stupid and not very smart. And I think the words of somebody who is, for instance, grasping the concept of gravity and misattributing the cause of it, you know, like, I think it feels very like, you know, like we said earlier, like the Greeks, like seeing some natural phenomena and being like,
Yeah, that's because Zeus was just clapping his ass cheeks, right? Like that's where the thunder comes from, right? Like you're recognizing something real, but you don't quite know how to accurately describe it or place it.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And so I think also a lot of the reaction to this was people, I think, feeling attacked by what he was saying. And that is even funnier to me because to feel attacked by the words of this loser
of Tom Sandoval
takes a lot, right? But I think that really got to people. Like they wanted to hate what he said with the Danny Masterson stuff, which again is like not the same thing. But I do think that people were like attacked morally on like, well, I'm justified to hate him. He is awful. And like immediately we saw the jumping to like, and he's done this and he's done this and he's done this and he said this and he's treated Ariana like this and he said this in the interview and he said this in Howie Mandel. Right. And I think that is people reacting based on something that was maybe true.
And they're only reacting. They're not critically thinking. We're not digesting. We're not explaining. And it's very boring in that way.
And I think, again, just to talk about like Sexy Unique Podcast we mentioned earlier, Laura on Sexy Unique Podcast had something really interesting to say in a recent episode where they were talking about the same profile and she commented like, I like reading what these people have to say, right? I don't necessarily am coming to this, and I say this too, I don't necessarily come to the profile to like hear the editorialization of someone interpreting this person's actions. I think it is very interesting, and why I like The Housewives for all of the editorializations that happen on it now is to sort of like put a camera on somebody and let them be something in front of that camera. I think that tells us something about who they really are. And the fact that this is where his mind goes is fascinating to me. It's hard for me to like get myself twisted over it because I'm like, wait, where did he arrive at that conclusion? Why is that where he's saying it? What is the messaging here that he is being fed by his 23-year-old publicist or this crisis PR firm that he's hired?
Oh, the publicist that started watching Vanderpump in middle school.
Yeah. So we're going to keep going here. So one thing that I really want to focus on in this episode is that, you know, Sandoval is a man of his own myth. I think that that's something that you see in this profile, that he is constructed around the idea of Tom Sandoval, that he is less of a person at this point and more of a collection of ideas that he has told everyone about himself. You know, there is this sort of like internal, in the words of Faith Hill, centrifugal force.
Sure.
Sorry, centrifugal motion around this like persona that he is, right?
Yeah.
That like the actions that he does, like pausing to stop when a plane flies overhead in the middle of a conversation.
That was like kind of the darkest, honestly.
You know, staring into the distance or like taping the lights over or taping paper over his lights so that it diffuses the light in his apartment better for when he gets his picture taken or video taken, you know? So we're going to keep going here. Quote, "Of course I wanted to record this." They're talking about at one point, he's asking, "Are you recording this? Are we rolling?" And she says, quote, "Of course I wanted to record this. I couldn't remember interviewing a public figure as eager to speak into a recording device. But then again, Sandoval is not a typical celebrity, nor is Vanderpump, which is currently airing its 11th season, your typical show. And Sandoval, the Midwest-bred son of a firefighter and a marketing executive, is not a Kardashian. This is a little bit later. What I mean is that though reality programming has been a dominant part of American culture for over 2 decades, we've never actually put a regular person on reality TV to live out much of their adult life and gotten to see what happens to them as a result. So what the writer is sort of gesturing at is like, with things like The Real World, right? It was like a capsule. It's like 1 season, right? The Hills is reality as much as like Curb Your Enthusiasm is a reality show, right?
They're like, we are the people we say we are, but this is still like all staged.
Where we know that was all staged. We know that it was written. We know that that show was essentially a sitcom. Not sitcom, sorry, like a network drama disguised as a reality show designed to sort of circumvent writing credits. We know that so much of the chaos, confusion, and hubbub around that show was people sort of being put in a position where they are living a fake life and then having to confront that fake life in the tabloids when the real life or the real motivations behind that don't necessarily line up, because that wasn't really who they were. You know, Heidi Montag and Spencer Pratt, as you can read in my interview with Heidi, are playing a character. Lauren has gone on to say a million times, like, I couldn't even tell you why I was feeling those things because they weren't really my feelings. You know, like I'm
feeling what my character would feel in this
moment. This is a role, right? Are the jobs that they got were scripted for them. The situations that they were in were scripted. Everything was heavily managed and shot in a way to remove all sense of reality from it, right? Like it wanted to feel like a scripted television show, unlike Vanderpump Rules, where these were nobodies. And like, let's be clear about that. None of these people were successful. They were not cutting it as actors. They were not getting big parts. They were not breaking through in any major way. Some of them had various television careers and had been on TV before or made music, or like Sheena maybe dated a celebrity or two. But it wasn't like they were, you know,
nothing
the
like actually breaking.
Kardashians. No, they were not even like on the level of the Kardashians, right? Where there was like a level of infamy there brought about by this like massive trial that their father spearheaded. Or, you know, I guess the most comparative thing is Jersey Shore. But that was like such a self-contained show where it was not about like watching Snooki like as a vet tech. It was about watching Snooki on spring break, on summer break, partying. And the whole show was designed around like a vacation that you were on, right? And so that is very true that I found very fascinating about this is like Vanderpump Rules is now one of the longest experiments we have of like taking literal nobodies who are not famous, not successful, not rich, and putting them on TV and watching what happens after a decade. Like, that is fascinating, right?
Yeah.
That is
and now we're at plus a decade.
Fascinating. Yeah, we've seen it a little bit, I think, with like The Real Housewives, I think is very comparable. But Vanderpump has now been on for 11 years and the longest housewife has been on 17 years. So like, you know, I think it exists in sort of like a parallel
like,
there.
In comparison to Vicky too, the show starts, I mean, a lot of things happen in Vicky's 17 years on the show, including being fired and brought back.
So many housewives start out very wealthy in a way that these people do not.
Exactly. She already starts with money, with house, with family, with kids. And we see the fallout of that. But I think what made Vanderpump obviously that lightning in the bottle was these were a bunch of 20-somethings who were nothing. And now they're a bunch of 40-somethings who are kind of still nothing outside of the show, except for Ariana now, who's like actually broken past that level.
So we get to the quote a little bit later about that has been clipped to death.
Here we go.
I asked Sandoval why he thought the scandal got so big. I'm not a pop culture historian, really, but I witnessed the O.J. Simpson thing and George Floyd and all these big things, which is really weird. Compare this to that, I think. But do you think in a weird way it's a little bit the same? Now, let's be clear here.
Yeah.
This got posted on social media like he is comparing himself to George Floyd and he is comparing himself to O.J. Simpson, which is idiotic. And he is not intelligent enough to really clarify the point that he is making here.
Yeah,
which
it's
is
like a very specific
still,
comparison
out
of the situation.
Left field point, and I don't necessarily think that those are the examples that I would go to. I think like something more akin is like somebody who like had a meltdown in a Target about the pandemic. Like, I think something more comparable is like...
I was thinking like the Will Smith slap, if anything, in terms of like it being a nothing burger almost.
I wouldn't even say that. No, I would say that it's like that video of the lady destroying the sunglasses thing at Target because of the COVID pandemic.
God.
And then like she becomes the #1 most hated woman in America. You know, like...
Like one of the first Karens.
Yeah, not saying at all that is like what Tom Sandoval's doing or that she should be redeemed in any way. But I'm just saying like... It was very much like this viral thing that gets blown up into proportion and becomes like a matter of public debate when it is like a single aisle and a single Target in a city that nobody is ever going to live in. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I think that is really probably a more apt comparison. And because he doesn't have that sort of brain to think about those kinds of examples, he pulls at the two most public scandals that immediately come to mind that are these two things. And again, I think it was wrong to compare them. But he's not comparing himself to George Floyd. He's comparing himself to the energy of that summer of like everybody sort of like finding like these things in our culture to affix ourselves to, and the
polarizing nature of media. Yeah,
exactly. And again, like, you guys know where we stand on this podcast about these things. We don't have to re-explain this. We don't have to relitigate it. But I did think the reaction to this was a little bit interesting because I don't think people are really engaging with what it is that he's saying, even if what he's saying is dumb. So the writer says, quote, "I looked over at Riley, his publicist, who was typing furiously on her phone. I think I knew what he meant. He was trying to express the oddity of becoming the symbolic center of a nationwide discussion and a major news story. What he communicated instead was something more honest, which is just how much the experience had made him lose perspective."
I mean, exactly. Like, that's exactly what I was thinking originally.
And okay, now the thing about Riley is very interesting. She is typing furiously on her phone.
She's like, fucking
that
you
gets
just
back.
said this.
And the writer never clarifies this, but I think it is left unsaid for a reason what Riley was typing on her phone. So, quote, "The next day, I was supposed to attend the taping of one of Sandoval's confessional interviews for the show. I was about to get in my car when I received a text from his publicist, Riley's boss. He'd rather you don't attend today, it read. He's not feeling the best. The next morning, I got a call from Baskin, and the day after that, a Bravo publicist rang me late on a Friday. Some of what Sandoval had said had gotten back to Bravo. Riley was in the room, so I wonder where that came from."
Yeah.
And everyone was concerned. What was it that he had said about O.J. Simpson and George Floyd exactly? Maybe Sandoval wasn't ready for this. The Bravo publicist asked if I really needed to see Sandoval again. Could the network facilitate an interview with one of the show's other stars? Now, this is very interesting. So a little bit later, the publicist gets back to this interviewer and says, "Hey, we're taping a confessional. Why don't you come?" And they show up to the confessional, and none other than one of Bravo's like head executives is in the building. Somebody who Sandoval has never even met. Sorry, not Bravo, NBC's head executive is in the building. Someone that literally has to reintroduce themselves to Sandoval because he has no idea who they are. As well as
Riley said, "Send in the big guns."
Yeah. And the writer was
Red
like,
fucking alert.
I could tell that this was a unprecedented thing for the network. And it's interesting that they would pull in the big brass like that, because what I really think is happening here is that Bravo is a cash cow and a sacred cow. And they are not in any way, shape, or form going to endanger a revenue stream in a way that has almost tanked it in the past. Famously, remember, Stassi and Kristen got ousted alongside Jax for what happened during actually the George Floyd uprising in 2020, if we're going to call it back to that, right? And so I think Bravo got freaked the fuck out that this person who they desperately need to stay on television, who they cannot afford to have another Stassi, Kristen, Jax sort of happening to, flies in the big brass to really intimidate everyone and really set the stage of like, this is our sacred cow, and don't you dare pull anything out of him that is going to get this show fucking canceled.
And it's crazy too, because what they really want is exactly what's already happening. Well, just before this moment, where they want someone to be basically on the edge of being canceled, but especially for something non-political like this. And they want to ride that until they can get every little penny from it. And then once he crosses the line of, ooh, that was too much.
But that's the thing that I find interesting about Bravo.
That's going to get us in trouble. Then they're like, reel it in.
Where I find that the Bravo audience is constantly litigating this very thing of like, how far is too far? How far do we push this? How far do we push our fixation on these horrible, awful, disgusting rich people, right? Is it too much when Ramona flies to Mar-a-Lago? Is it too much when maybe she says something racist to Ebony? Is it too much when she disrespects staff members? Oh, wait, but maybe it's not enough, right? Maybe that's not enough. But wait, maybe it's too much when Kristen says something to Faith. Or maybe it's too much when Lisa is in Mexico on Real Housewives of Miami throwing bread at people's dogs saying this is the best food they're ever going to eat because these people are poor. Maybe that's too much, right?
I haven't gotten to
We're
that
just
episode yet.
constantly redrawing the line. And I will say, we remain principled because we are communists with principles. But it is interesting to watch a viewing audience that is largely unprincipled constantly have to redraw that line for themselves, right?
Oh, and it's so
constantly go
ahistorical,
back
too.
on like what was actually too much.
Because if you go back to the first few seasons of any Housewives show, a lot of overt racism. Like,
Yes.
overt, they're
Yolanda
making
Hadid
offensive
was a
racist
horrible
jokes.
person. She was a horrible,
Constantly.
nasty racist on that show.
Yeah, or like berating staff. I mean, that's like Ramona's MO right from the beginning. And lots of misogyny, a ton of misogyny, internal misogyny against the women themselves. And then a ton of slut shaming, a ton of like prude, behavior. It's just like, yeah. And it's annoying to me because people go back and they go, and they start to relitigate again. And it's like, I don't think you can keep enjoying this ride.
No.
If you're going to constantly reevaluate every single thing you've seen on this show.
So there's this one scene that we are going to really quickly wrap up with. So he talks about in his life, not in years, but in seasons and episodes. Sometimes he pauses mid-sentence and stares into the middle distance like a doll whose wind-up key is jammed until whatever ambulance, helicopter, or other sound-interfering entity has passed. And then he continues as if nothing happened, even when there are no mics or cameras on him. Though he had come to LA to be an actor, he was proud of what he became instead. Did he become the next Brad Pitt? No. But he didn't want to be that anyway. It turns out reality TV is where the real stakes are. Actors were just pretending, playing roles. Quote, I had no respect for reality TV before, Sandoval told me. And now I don't have very much respect for actors. I'm like, y'all try doing this. Whoa. So, jumping back a little bit in the profile, we get the information that Sandoval arrived, which we knew this if you have read anything from Sandoval before, in LA in 2004. He wanted to be an actor. He says that he liked to pretend. He never really liked sports. At 15, he modeled and lived briefly in Miami, where he was photographed by Bruce Weber. And then he shot for Abercrombie and Fitch. He was a pool boy at the Mondrian Hotel, a cater waiter, did campaigns for Rock and Republic, Ed Hardy, Von Dutch, etc. Von Dutch specifically is very funny. Riley goes, quote, I love Von Dutch. I love that brand. Whoa. So we're going to get a little bit more about this. So there is a interview with Tom from back in the day in St. Louis Magazine, and he talks a little bit about what is like growing up in the Florissant and Hazelwood area of St. Louis. Okay, so it says I grew up in the Florissant Hazelwood area. I don't know if those are two neighborhoods or if it's Florissant Hazelwood. You know what I mean? Like
I wouldn't know.
That's what I'm saying. I wasn't sure. So he says in this quote, what was it like growing up in St. Louis for you? And he says, I grew up in the Florissant Hazelwood area and I went to St. Ferdinand Catholic School. After 5th grade, I ended up going to Russell and then I ended up going to the Hazelwood West. My brother went on to private school, but I was always more of a, I don't know, I was always just such a rebel. Like my dad got his ears pierced in the 90s and I remember I was in 4th grade and I was like, yeah, I want to get my ears pierced. It's kind of a risque thing, especially in the Midwest. He also says, I remember he got me this gold cross for Christmas and I showed up to school and we were definitely not allowed to wear earrings. But not only did I wear an earring to school, growing up, I had a dangling cross because I thought George Michael was the coolest thing. I loved his look. He had his cross earring, so I was like, I'm going to get a cross earring. And I wore it to school and I got in trouble. Every year they had this talent show. We had our school picnic with our parish and the talent show, which consisted of 25 girl acts. And then I got into it and I was the one guy. I danced and lip synced to Bust a Move with a CD around my neck and ended up getting first place.
Dun, dun, dun.
I loved this interview because, again, this was from 2018. So that was 6 years ago.
6 years ago? Almost, yeah.
And I love reading about these things from before the scandal because you can just see how, like, even prior to becoming the most hated man in America, he was always myth making about, I always wanted to be a star. I always wanted to be famous. I always wanted to grow up and be somebody, make something of myself. I was a rebel. I prided myself on being the bad boy. I wanted to like stand out at school and be in the talent show. And who knows if he won first place, but he says he won first place. And I think he believes he won first place. And that in the history of Tom Sandoval is what matters. It's not what we think about him. It's what he believes about himself. So you have these interviews with him from YouTube that I am delighted by. Can you read the headline of this first video?
Oh, yes. This one was the most irritating. I was ripped off and left homeless in New York. And this is from the Making a Portrait series. And the first episode's with Tom Sandoval.
Yeah, this came out 3 years ago, as you know, and he has a mustache, goatee, bleached tips, bleached hair. Can I say? This was very hot. This video. He looked hot here.
He does, but this video, you guys can watch it, of course, it's in our show notes. But
it's freaky and weird and scary.
It's very like male for male, like male fashion GQ for men tees.
Yeah.
Like, lots of like smoke and like whiskey.
Speaking of Carrie O'Donnell, I sent this video to Carrie and he said it looks like a gay porn interview, which is so true. So
my friend Sophia came by this morning. She needed to print something. I was watching this video and she was like, "Is this that thing where it's so male? It's so male that it's suddenly gay." Like, and I'm like, exactly.
I think a lot of what Tom Sandoval does is so male it becomes gay.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Why don't you get into it?
Yeah. So this was filmed in like 2021. So this is like right when COVID is like, I mean, really, it's height. But it's when people started to pretend that we could just go back and film things. So it starts with him in a mask, but then, he gets ready for the shoot, whatnot. He talks a lot about how it's just a funny detail, but during COVID, he was going obviously stir crazy, as many of us were, I'm sure. But he would always put on outfits and like get ready, like do his full routine, like hair, makeup, basically.
Because remember, they basically put the show on hiatus in 2020 after all the racism came out
because
of the pandemic.
Summer and it was just way too much at once. But he was talking about how Ariana would make fun of him because like, why are you getting ready? And he's like, I just need to feel something, like to go get gas even. It's not shocking.
I also love that it's like, again, he needed to be on the show so bad that he was like, I literally have to pretend we're filming the show just to feel something.
I think he's still probably talking in the way that we mentioned before. Which, by the way, the like inland empire of it all, where like the idea that when the cameras aren't rolling, nothing's being recorded, you are pausing for an ambulance so that everyone hears you is. I keep being shaken by the concept of that.
I love that you are just like stuck and fixated on the idea that Vanderpump Rules is Inland Empire by David Lynch.
The shot Inland Empire where it's just like the haunting music as they zoom into the Hollywood sign, like that's Vanderpump Rules.
If there's a thing that Matt loves more in this world than Vanderpump Rules, it's Inland Empire by David Lynch.
It's so true.
Matt loves that movie. He references it to me all the time. He's like, this is just like Inland Empire.
Everything in Hollywood is just like Inland Empire.
You're kind of like an alt gay in that way, because where most people like me would be like, this is so Mulholland Drive. Like you're like, this is so Inland Empire. So keep going.
So he kind of gives relatively the same story we keep hearing here, and it will keep coming up. But he talks about, of course, growing up, he called himself a unicorn kid. He even did the whole like, I kind of marched to the beat of a different drum. It's like, okay,
a gay drum.
I went to Catholic school growing up, and every year we'd have a talent show at the school carnival. So he talked about him doing that number to CC Music Factory in 3rd grade. And he mentions, like this competition was 1st to 8th grade, but I won 1st place.
Wow.
It's like, yeah, okay. He talks about his parents getting divorced when he was in 4th grade. And he has this whole thing about like, normally be like traumatizing, and like it was traumatizing in a way, but also like really helped me like connect to like pop culture. Because when my like stepmom, got my dad, it was something where it was like his stepmom told his dad, oh, like if you get an ear piercing, I'll like buy you a diamond or something, which is like that story you kind of told earlier. And apparently once his dad got that piercing, it made him want to get one. And of course he walked into school, like we mentioned, putting the dangly cross on, even though he wasn't allowed to because it was Christian school. And he said he felt like he was on top of the world and like got the taste of like, you know, attention and fame.
Wait,
basically.
can I show
Like,
you 2 photos of Tom Sandoval's dad? And it's going to like clarify basically everything you've ever felt in your entire life.
I know. As I was doing this, I like
Here's
forgot
one
to look it
and
up.
here's 2. He looks exactly like Tom. It's really scary.
Oh my God, how have I never seen these photos before?
He looks exactly
We'll have
like
to
Tom.
we'll post these
Like,
on the Instagram.
It's actually
so y'all can
copy and
see.
paste. It's actually copy and paste.
It's kind of frightening, the second one.
I know.
That's really copy and paste.
It's literally copy and paste. You know how tabloids are always like, oh my goodness, such and such is a direct clone of Reese Witherspoon and that ex-husband of hers. If they were merged together, and it's like that's what he looks like.
No,
with
this
his
is really
father.
giving Brother Dawn, Brother Dusk. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. So basically, it's honestly not to sound dramatic, but it really does like the villain origin story was this like 3rd grade performance he did where it like completely changed. He got the taste of fame, the taste of attention, starts to dress differently, starts to act kind of crazy, and becomes like, it sounds like relatively popular, honestly, in school and becoming like that guy in a way. He talks about his mom being a firefighter, like we mentioned earlier, but with that, she would work 24 hours a day. You know, she did like those multi-day shifts. And because they were divorced, it was very easy for him to basically use her house that was empty for days at a time to be that house that the kids would go to like get fucked up and like do drugs, drink, party, whatever, what have you. And he talks about this story that it was giving like extreme peaked in high school vibes where he was like, yeah, man, like we were all out at night past curfew wearing black, just these like rowdy kids. And I couldn't even believe it. The cops would find us and there was 2 patrol cars, 3 of them were on foot and we outran them. They couldn't catch us at all. It was like this whole thing. And I was just like,
Girl, get in line.
Okay.
Get in line.
I was like literally just about everybody I know, I think.
That's like me retelling my alcoholism stories to everybody as if I haven't ever told you. Like me saying like, yeah, one time I was at this house party that got broken up by the cops and I had this is when I was really skinny. I had passed out drunk in the shower and was laying on my side in the bathroom.
That's a funnier
like,
story, to
in
be
a
honest.
fetal position so that when the cops were going through the house, they just like they must have just like accidentally skipped over me because when I woke up, even the owners
You're
of
literally
the
Sydney Sweeney in Euphoria, like covering her mouth.
like literally everyone in the house, even like the people that lived there, were not there, and it was just me alone in the bathtub. And I woke up the next morning alone and was like, "Where is everybody?" But yeah, no, this is really interesting too because we really see how something that comes up on the show much later is that him and Ariana were always throwing parties and always socializing, and they were sort of like the fun party house, the party couple, the center of attention, the like sort of nucleus of their social scene. And he says like one of the things that was unattractive about Ariana in the end was that like, you know, she didn't want to party with me anymore, man. She didn't want to go out with me anymore. And you see him like sort of constantly embodying this like teenage angst of like
literally the cool guy with the cool house.
Yeah, I'm the cool guy with the cool party house that everyone likes.
I got a pack of beer. You know, we got some to buy at Vaughn's. Like,
I mean,
he even talks about stealing booze and cigarettes from, like, his mom and stuff. And it was just, like, so... He was like, my childhood was so fun. It was great times. And I'm like, really?
I know that we can heal, and I know that we can evolve, and I know that we can, like, develop out the things about ourselves that are, like, the rough edges, you know? Like, if you were to go back to me in high school and go back to me now, like, I would say you could see the sort of, like, Pokemon evolution, right? But it is scary when we look at people like Tom Sandoval and are like, oh, deep down, though, we never change. Like,
yeah, this is like that guy we all knew.
Yourself at all.
We all knew in our high school who, like, still is getting loaded every weekend. Like, it still, like, goes to the same places.
I'm not going to put my friend on blast, but I have a person in my life who dated someone from our hometown because they, like, moved back home. And there is this park, there's this park, I'm not going to actually say the name of it because I don't want to dox myself, but there's this park that we used to go and get drunk at in high school because it was like a big park.
We all
and
got one.
Yeah, exactly. And I remember when this person was breaking up with this boyfriend of theirs who was a loser, they were like, yeah, he just like goes to X park
and gets drunk with his friends in the parking lot of the park. And it's like, we're 25.
Extremely loser.
And I'm
energy.
like, that's
Yeah.
Tom Sandoval. Like, if he had never gotten a modeling contract
Exactly.
in Miami, he would be in St. Louis getting drunk in a parking lot and hitting on girls at his Hollister job that he works at, that he's far
He's like
too old
the
to be there.
personality hire
Yeah.
at every retail store.
Yeah, personality
Exactly.
hire at every retail store. He works at like I think I would like to think in his alternate reality, the like bougie gentrifier bar that he works at in downtown
Exactly.
St. Louis has also
Exactly.
like clockwork gears on the walls.
And he's like fucking the manager and like
Yeah.
some of the wait staff on the side. So like nobody feels
Yeah.
like they can confront him.
I would like to
Very
think
bad.
Vanderpump Rules would have just happened in St. Louis if he had never left. Like,
I want to watch that show.
okay, keep going.
Yes. So then he talks about going to New York finally. We have another interview later. We talk about kind of the in between New York,
Yeah.
but it's about 2003. He's there trying to find an apartment. He has a story that he tells multiple times now about getting ripped off from an apartment. He basically went to see a place. The guy said, oh, we're going to need first month and second month and et cetera, et cetera. And he basically like literally hands him cash. The guy's like, you have to pay today if you want the apartment. You can imagine where this is going. Obviously, the permit wasn't legit and he never got to stay there. So he got ripped off the few thousand that he brought with him to the city and ended up having to stay in hostels during the few months of winter. He talks about how he basically had like a change of clothes that they would keep behind the like front desk at the hostel that he'd have to have them hold on to so he could change. It's not pretty rough, I won't lie. But he's still acting. Not acting, but he's still trying to get roles, still trying to do modeling gigs. And he kind of rambles on that for a while. And then he finally gets the role in the Bon Jovi video.
So
and that ends up being kind of a big break moment.
Yeah, it's interesting too that, I mean, like, again, he was, I think this is something that you see across everything. And I hate to call down the specter of Kim Kardashian from her lofty perch in hell, but like, I really do think that there is something to be said for people who get off their fucking ass and work. Right? Like,
yeah. No, he's a real hustler.
He
Absolutely.
had a hustle and a dream, and he was like, I am going to fucking make it no matter what. And by God, look what he did with himself. So you have this really fascinating 2-part episode on YouTube of the actor's audience from
this is so
when
funny.
he first got cast on Vanderpump Rules.
This is when he's still in his like twink era. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
the hair and everything. So yeah, this is very interesting. You have heard a clip of this earlier on, and we'll play probably another one here. It's a very like interesting interview because it's basically around season 2 or maybe in between season 1 and 2 of
It was
Vanderpump
between
Rules.
1 and 2, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, because they're talking about how they can't say what happens
Well,
in the next
actually,
season, but he's already been on for a minute.
Let me.
It came out about 10 years ago.
See, I can actually tell you the exact time that it. Yeah, this was filmed. I mean, this was about to premiere right before season 2 premiered.
That makes sense. That
Yeah.
makes sense. So he talks about basically when he kind of got that taste, obviously, for fame and like dancing and like kind of being in those theater spaces. He had gotten he got signed to a talent agency in St. Louis while
I
he
would
was
love
in
to
high
know what
school.
the talent agency in St. Louis is doing.
I
Like-
mean, he even jokes like there wasn't really shit to do, but he basically got to do some ads for like tuxedo ads, like the ones they do for prom, for teens. He mentioned getting something like $2,500 for like that shoot, which I mean, as a teenager in St. Louis in the 90s, that was a big deal. But he obviously got to do a bit more modeling work. But then obviously as he graduated high school, he wasn't going to go to college and decided to move to Chicago and then also Miami. It seems like he was only there for like maybe a year or two at a time. I didn't really get much more than just that. But he was doing some acting, some modeling gigs. He has a lot of very small credits and like he kept busy in that sense. This is all before New York though.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
So then he eventually goes to New York City where he ends up telling the same story again about getting robbed, et cetera, et cetera. Like I've said, he's talked about this myth-making kind of character-building story many times. And then we get into him moving into LA in 2005. And he talks about how, LA was like, the sky's the limit in Los Angeles and like the opportunity is just amazing and he would never leave. And this is him saying that like about 5 or 6 years later. So he started talking about doing student films, doing modeling work, got some bigger gigs to get more clout, started going to some acting schools and did some acting courses for a few years, and then ended up actually shooting on location for a few films, like some horror indie kind of productions. Talks about going to China once, where he said all the food tasted the same. And I was like, Interesting. Just anyway. And then he talks about doing the film Puppet Master, where he met Kristen Dowdy.
Dun, dun, dun.
So then we get to part 2 of this interview. They're only about like 10 minutes each. He has this funny thing about talking about how getting a serving job in Los Angeles is like the hardest thing to do in the world, and compares it to getting a job at like a law firm.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay.
I love this part of it where he's like, yeah, man, like literally it's like more difficult than getting bartending jobs because you have no idea that it's like more competitive than even like being an actor.
Yeah, he's like literally like everyone wants to work at the hottest clubs. There's only so many positions that you can get, and there's 1,000 people that want that job. And of course, like the part of it is that, you know, you need those jobs so you can keep doing your acting gigs during the day. He talks about getting closer with Jax because they had met in Miami, which he didn't really talk about before, but we know that context. He talks about getting closer with Jax has been really hard. So he's kind of reflecting on the current season and like his experience being in LA since then. And then he kind of starts talking about the show a bit. Obviously, the interview is kind of about that. But he talks about how the show kind of is designed to make you confrontational. Again, this is only after filming season 1. But obviously, Bravo gave them the rundown and made sure that they were acting as according by making sure that if they text each other, they actually bring it up in person. They don't like stay on their phones or keep things like, you know, off camera. You hold your emotions until you're filming. And he says that obviously you have to stay honest, and it's very challenging in that sense. But with that being said, everyone in the show is, he says, exactly as they are portrayed as. So Stassi really is as crazy as she sounds, Jax as well, and Kristen and him as well. He then has this thing where they kind of ask him, like, would you give any advice on people like, you know, working in the biz, which... of like a year, Tom Sandoval being 1 year into Vanderpump Rules, I don't see what he can really provide in a sense. No. But he is, as he says in this, getting recognized in public. So he wants to make sure we know that if you're going to be working in this industry, you got to be ready to be confronted on the street. He does have kind of a funny anecdote, though, where he talks about how he really would be fighting with Stassi or Kristen in public, like actually getting to a verbal screaming match. And then, of course, he runs into Sir, runs back into wherever he's working. And somebody would come up and be like, oh, my God, can we get a picture? Like, how are you doing? And he's like, we're currently in the middle of drama. And then we're currently in the middle of like actual things going on.
Yeah.
So being confronted with like fans in that moment, which I think is a bit more unique to the reality show version of it all, it's a bit difficult. And how little did he know that would get even worse. He then mentions that he's doing projects with James Kennedy, Kristen, and Peter, all these like different side projects that literally never see the light of day, I think, from this point on. The really upsetting part, and we'll play a clip here right after, is that basically he kind of says that reality TV isn't that kind of cage it used to be where you can't do anything outside of it, and that there's all these exciting, great projects that everyone he knows is working on, and they're all going to be able to keep doing those lovely careers outside of working at Sir.
Well, your exposure on the show should certainly help you with that.
It does, actually. It's a different game now. You know, it's not like the way it was considered. I mean, long time ago, where, you know, doing reality was like a death to an acting career or whatever. It's in fact quite the opposite. Really, now exposure is exposure. So essentially, I mean, this is just, it's a great launching pad to do many other things.
Well, you're also on a network that does reality well, so.
Yes, exactly. Bravo does a great job. So I'm very glad to be a part of them.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Tom, for taking the time to do this interview. It's been a great pleasure of mine, too. Thank you.
So jumping back a little bit, let's go back to New York and sort of do like a play-by-play of everything that he does from the time that he lands in New York to the time that he becomes a Vanderpump Rules cast member. So as he says, he moves to New York, and he says kind of a different version of this on an official Bravo podcast, The Daily Dish, where he's like, me and my girlfriend broke up at the time, and then I went to get a place. This guy took my money and just robbed me pretty much. So I was like, my money, that's all I had for my apartment. He says he basically paid for 2 apartments and never got the keys to either. And so he kind of like spins a little bit more of a convoluted story where he's like, yeah, like I paid for this apartment and then I didn't get it. And then I paid for 2 other apartments and they stole my money and then I was homeless. So
Who knows?
just a little bit different version of events. I'm sure the truth is in there somewhere.
I'm sure he was robbed anyway.
Yeah. He says on this Daily Dish podcast that, quote, you know, it added character. He says, quote, I worked out all day long, every day, showered at the gym. You know, when you leave your bags behind the hotel desk, I would do that. Like, oh, I need to go grab something out of my bag and go back there and just change. I'd get my castings at Starbucks and then do my castings and then go to the gym for 3 hours and go out. Schwartz, who was on the podcast with him, asks, you know, are you able to romanticize it? And he says, quote, it's awesome, dude. I was so incredibly strong, and said that the upside of being homeless was that he had a 6-pack. So everyone clap for Tom Sandoval. So in 2002, he lands John Bon Jovi's Misunderstood video. And I want to read this People magazine article about it.
Can I just say I never saw this video? I didn't realize he's like the main character in
Yes,
the video. It's
yes.
actually really crazy. Everyone who's like actually really watching Vanderpump Rules and has not seen this video or not seen it in a long time, please watch it right now.
We can't play it obviously because of copyright, but he was on it actually with Camila Alves, who is a Brazilian model and also famously the wife of Matthew McConaughey. So, quote, the video shared on the legendary rock band's YouTube channel starts with the camera facing a closed door, which is filled with photos of a happy couple and heart-shaped Jack Hearts Jill 2002 signs. Once the door opens, Sandoval, 34, is seen lying in bed with none other than Camila Alves straddling him, and both Sandoval and Alves are naked. Dun, dun, dun.
I mean, he's naked like a few times in the video and they have to like blur it out and everything.
So, we also are going to jump forward a little bit now. So in 2013, right when the show is getting ready to premiere, he has an interview with Reality Wanted. And the interviewer says, when I talked to Jax last week, he said that the core group on Vanderpump Rules are actually friends and have been for a very long time. Tell us more about the relationships that you have with everyone on the show. And Tom says, quote, I've known Jax for roughly 10 years. It's funny being here in New York at the moment. We talk about how we engraved our initials at the Gershwin Hotel. Every model has roughed it and stayed at the Gershwin.
Oh, that's the hostel he was staying at, yeah.
We were bouncing back and forth between New York and Miami. Jax went out to LA, and then I went out there. We stayed friends over the years. He introduced me to Kristen, who to him, to Stassi, and Kristen also introduced Katie to Tom Schwartz. Working at SUR, it's funny. I work at SUR and Villa Blanca, and that place is a retirement home compared to the drama and BS that happens at SUR. Me and Jax have been working at SUR for a year, and it's a huge adjustment. I've heard about it before, and I'm like, how can you let work get to you? And here I am. So it's interesting here, too. So he says that Jax is the one who introduces him to Kristen.
Right.
And I would maybe assume that like he meets Kristen and then they go out for this part together. They start dating.
Yeah,
or
probably.
Maybe they go out for a part and then they like get closer on the movie. But he says that Jax introduces him to Kristen and also says that Jax introduced him to Stassi. And then also Kristen introduced Katie to Tom Schwartz, which is like, no wonder Katie hated Kristen so much.
She has a right at that point.
Yeah. So amidst all of this, I want to call out an Instagram post from Tom Sandoval about his mom, just to give a little more color on his mom. This post reads, it's a photo of them, and it says that she was the first woman to be awarded Firefighter of the Year in St. Louis in 1997, and also received the Heroism Award from Firehouse Magazine. She had just retired that year that he posted this photo. You could see it in our links, but I just wanted to call that out because while all of this is happening, his mom is retiring and like sort of like nearing the end of her career. And so I'm going to play a clip now from
Please do.
Tom Sandoval. And this is something I will explain after I play the clip. So listen here.
How long you been in LA?
About 6 months or so.
You like it?
Yeah, it's cool. Definitely.
Come out here to act, model, the whole deal?
Yeah, pretty much. That, music.
Whoa. So this is a short clip from 2006 of Tom Sandoval appearing on none other than The Hills. He had showed up for a casting. They were filming for the casting. And he ends up making it on camera. He's naked. He's sitting in a chair. And Lauren Conrad is sort of looking at him, undressing him with her eyes, looking at him like, who's this douchebag, right? He has the signature Tom Sandoval, like, goatee beard combo, where it's like kind of patchy enough that it's not really one or the other.
And the spiky hair, of course.
Yeah, spiky hair, of course, completely hairless, and also six pack. So it's interesting that he sort of just like randomly appears on this television show that was the predecessor and one of the inspirations for Vanderpump Rules. So in 2008, he gets cast on a movie, Playing with Fire. And I would love for you to read this Wikipedia description of Playing with Fire.
So I haven't read this yet. I'm very excited. Beautiful, seductive rich girl Daphne gets her kicks playing mind games, finding and seducing young working-class men until she cruelly kicks them to the curb. But when she comes across handsome med student Nick, she discovers a challenge. Nick isn't so easily seduced, so Daphne and her friends set about seducing Nick's girlfriend, Heather. When things go wrong and Heather gets in a terrible accident, Daphne finds her comfortable, easy world spiraling out of control and will take all of her ability to find out who is in control of this dangerous game. I might need to watch this movie.
I know. Well,
is it available literally anywhere?
Yeah, it is available literally anywhere. And it's really, really funny and stupid and bad.
The cover is fucking hilarious. It's like a ring with fire
funny. And also Tom is like so young and has like the thickest eyebrows in the movie. But yeah, it's sort of like a sexy cat and mouse game with a rich girl.
Very Lifetime original.
Very Lifetime original, very direct to camera, direct to DVD. So then we're going to read this next movie synopsis, also from Wikipedia. In 2009, he gets cast in The Pit and the Pendulum, which is a erotic thriller based on Edgar Allan Poe's 1842 short story, The Pit and the Pendulum. Amazing. Why don't you read that second graph that has the explainer in it for us?
Yes. 7 students answer an advertisement to participate in an experiment to explore how the sensation of pain can be eliminated. Arriving at a secluded institute, they are welcomed by mysterious and eccentric scientist J.B. DeVay. But when a new student begins to disappear one by one, they begin to question J.B.'s true intentions. In a final showdown, Jason confronts her and discovers his boyfriend Kyle strapped to a table beneath her final experiment, inches away from the razor's edge.
Dun, dun, dun. Okay, so
I'm upsetted. I love a movie that's not rated, and the cover is actually crazier than the movie you see. The cover is actually insane.
So this is my
photoshopping is out of control.
So this is my other favorite thing. So, okay, the trailer is so crazy. Like, I really can't explain enough that he is giving like Bushwick they them down in this. Like, he's in like a lace mesh bodysuit with like red like cutouts underneath and has like a skinny little necklace and like a very pronoun haircut.
Amazing.
But the most important part of this is that it is part of, actually I found out, the gay horror movie canon, and was canonized as such on a blog spot that became my new favorite blog spot called gayhorrorfilms.blogspot.com.
Honestly,
and
work.
The lovely people at gayhorrorfilms.blogspot.com had this to say, quote, here's the gay factor, because they always say, like, what's the gay factor in this movie? So the gay factor in The Pit and the Pendulum is, quote, in typical, I love it's typical because, you know, they've seen all of this director's movies. In typical de couture fashion, expect hot hunks in their underwear. 2 guys fight to the death in their underwear. 2 other guys end up as a couple, and the 2 girls hook up. A few of the actors can be found in other gay-related projects. Tom Sandoval was discovered for De Couture's Playing with Fire, the movie that we just talked about.
His big break.
Yeah, And so we get now the movie that launched it all, 2010's Puppet Master.
The axis of evil.
I'm now. If you thought the previous covers were insane, this
this movie is crazy. This movie is crazy. Okay, so this is
take it seriously.
It's so like
and we'll post all these covers on Instagram, by the way.
It's just so like Five Nights at Freddy's.
Like the off-brand third-party version of the gas station DVD bin.
Yeah, it's so good. Wait, let me see if I can find the trailer for it, just so we could like kind of see what it's giving. Okay, great. This is 2 minutes. Let's watch this. Let's fucking go. Let's fucking go.
This is my shit.
We might have to do a stream of all these movies.
Honestly?
We might have to recap this. There's Tom. And like old-timey. Wait, is he
someone
a Nazi?
Already got shot.
I think he's a Nazi hunter in this movie. What the fuck is happening? Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god.
I'm like in disbelief.
Oh my god.
This movie looks amazing, actually.
There's no dialogue in this trailer.
I was gonna say, it's just music.
What is...
Oh, we got a man with a hook for hand. The dolls are alive.
Whoa.
Okay, so we got some ventriloquy. Some haunted ventriloquy.
Okay, there's nothing happening in this trailer, but in a stateside hotel during the height of World War II, young Danny Coogan dreams of joining the war effort following the murder of hotel guest Mr. Oh my God. He was not a Nazi hunter. He is a Nazi assassin in this movie. Following the murder of hotel guest Mr. Talloon by Nazi assassins, Danny finds the old man's crate of mysterious puppets and is suddenly thrust into a battle all of his own. He discovers that Nazis Max and Klaus, along with beautiful Japanese saboteur Ozu, plan to attack a secret American manufacturing plant. After his family is attacked and his girlfriend Beth is kidnapped, it's up to Danny and the living deadly puppets to stop this axis of evil.
You know what's actually insane is that I had a feeling this sounded familiar. There are like 10 of these movies, and
Matt,
this is like the unofficial 4/10th. There's Puppet Master 1989, Puppet Master 2 1990, Puppet Master 3 Toulon's Revenge, Puppet Master 4, 5, and then Curse of the Puppet Master, Retro Puppet Master Legacy, Puppet Master versus Demonic Toys, and then Puppet Master Axis of Evil.
And then
there's also Axis Rising, Axis Termination, Puppet Master The Littlest Reich, Blade the Iron Cross.
Wait, is The Littlest Reich Nazi puppets?
Puppet Master Dr. Death. I mean, this was like 2 years ago.
In 1989, escaped Nazi war criminal Dr. Andre Talon attempts to engage a bartender in a sexual relationship. He responds with disgust upon learning that she is a lesbian. Oh, okay. So he's a homophobic Nazi war criminal puppet maker. Got it. Cool. So we have
I'm
official...
obsessed.
Synopsis of this that we just read, but my favorite thing about this movie in particular, do you want to click this link to fullmoondirect.com?
Sure. Let's go.
That is a resale website. So it's a sales site, excuse me, like a movie merch site. And it is for the merch for this movie. Matthew, look at this photo. Okay, so they're like... So let's talk about this movie. I guess these like Puppet Master movies are like cult classics to people.
Oh, I'm sure there are people that are like screaming their heads off listening. Like,
so there is a literal like huge, I guess, enough audience for this that they make a modeled trunk for this movie.
I'm sorry.
That comes with all of this for just this movie. Are you ready for this? The model's trunk collector's case includes detailed, crafted, and designed after the full-size Andre Toulouse Puppet Master trunk from the films. So you get a Nazi scientist puppet master trunk that looks and feels like an old piece of luggage with wear and tear, travel stickers, and a lock. It features a poster scroll featuring the key art of Puppet Master Axis of Evil with the puppets bursting through the flag of Nazi Germany. 9 trading cards featuring key art from each of the 9 Puppet Master films. 6 all-new stickers, including stylized puppet images created to commemorate the 20th anniversary of Puppet Master, featuring, and then these are the names of the puppets. Are you ready? Blade, Jester, Pinhead, Tunneler, Leech Woman, and Six Shooter. It's also limited edition with only 1,800 of them ever manufactured.
Wow.
Whoa.
We should buy it.
This wall scroll with all of them like bursting through the Nazi flag is haunting. Like, this image is haunting to me.
I just Googled on eBay to see what comes up for Puppet Master. You can get, Gags, listen if you want to fund this, Puppet Master 12 complete box set of Blu-ray copies of all their movies. 12.
How many?
12.
How much?
It's $130.
Okay, not so collector.
It's not bad,
then.
honestly, Blu-ray.
So last but not least, we get one more thing that we are going to play for you here. And this is really good. This is some good shit. So this is an acting reel from none other than Kristen.
Let's fucking go.
This is an acting reel from none other than Kristen Dowdy, featuring a movie that she does with Tom Sandoval. Let's play this.
I got my first job.
Yeah?
Yeah, I'm painting something for this guy.
Yeah? You didn't use the emergency fund, did you?
Mom, I'll pay it back. Is this what you did to Dad, Mom? Is this why he left you? Because you drove him fucking crazy too?
Is this what I taught you?
You want to fucking hit me, Mom? You want to hit me again? Fucking hit me. Go for it. Hit me. Do it, Mom. Fucking hit me.
This is why your boyfriend left you.
Want to buy a box of caramels? Our soccer team needs to go to Toronto.
How much are they?
$5.
Yeah, sure. I'll buy a box.
Just one?
I'm afraid that's all I can afford. Thank you.
6 months and then move to the Luxor, the MGM, or some other place on the Strip.
Can we finally get married?
As soon as we get a little bit of money, we'll get married.
You like cards?
Yeah, I'm gonna be a dealer.
You?
Yeah. Me, what does that fucking surprise you or something?
Okay, Matthew, can you please look up the trailer of 23 Seconds to Sunrise? And I want your legitimate, honest reaction when you Google this trailer. Not trailer, sorry, this poster, movie, whatever.
Oh my God. Sorry, I just immediately the 2 out of 5 star rating.
Wait, are you ready for who is the main character in this movie, Matthew? Tell the girls. Tell the girls who this is. I just sent you a photo. Tell the girls who that is. Who is that?
Eric Roberts. You may wonder, Roberts? Like Emma Roberts? Like, I don't even know how to describe what Eric Roberts means to me. Eric Roberts is the brother that a lot of people don't want to know of Julia Roberts.
And also the father of Emma Roberts.
And the father of Emma Roberts. who is notoriously known for having pivoted to Lifetime Originals, and it is the doctor in Stalked by My Doctor series. If you ever want to see something so unhinged, just absolutely batshit crazy Lifetime Original kind of movie, please watch Stalked by My Doctor. It is frightening, and he is a freak. Now that I know he's a part of this, I will have to see this movie.
Yeah, he's in 23
will.
Seconds to Sunrise. That's in 2012. And the year before that, the movie that he meets Kristen on, Behind Your Eyes, is about, I read this like Reddit comment about it a couple days ago. I posted that I rented a copy of a movie Sandoval and Kristen were in called Behind Your Eyes. Overall, it's a pretty mediocre movie. The acting is okay and the score is pretty decent. The movie follows Steve and Erica as they take a trip to visit Steve's parents, Steve being Tom. On the way, they are kidnapped and held hostage. Their kidnapper soon starts revealing secrets from Steve's past and shit gets intense. Tom's acting is kind of dry, but it gets better as the movie progresses. If I'm being honest, it feels weird to see Tom in something other than Pump Rules. Kristen was only in the first 5 minutes and was subsequently killed off. So I can't really critique her performance. If you watch it, I'd say go for it. It's not available to stream anywhere, but you'll probably be able to find a DVD online for $5 or $10. Hell, you might even be able to find a copy at your local library.
Wow.
And then the trailer that we just watched was for 23 Seconds to Sunrise, and that is, quote, this is from direct-to-video-connoisseur.com that reviews direct-to-video movies for a living. Here's another of the
Honestly,
films
a soldier in the culture.
submitted to us by Kevin at MTI Video. This one I was really interested in because it starred Eric Roberts. He's a favorite here at DTCV,
exactly.
even though we haven't reviewed nearly as many of his 300 plus IMDb credits as we should.
He is working Hollywood, bitch.
Have you looked at his bio recently? He has more post-production credits than most people's full CVs. 23 Minutes to Sunrise takes place in a small Illinois town outside St. Louis. It involves two people who work third shift at the dinner, Eddie and Sheila, and the odd assortment of patrons they have. Two of them are Eric Roberts and a young lady with him. There's something ominous about Roberts, and Eddie thinks he knows why because of that. Doesn't want anything to do with him, and Sheila wants to protect the girl. At the same time, a young thug and his girlfriend show up looking to rob the place. They're all on a collision course to wackiness. Tom Sandoval is the young thug and his girlfriend. So.
I was gonna say. If anyone's wacky, it's definitely Eric Roberts. Yeah. That's a great way to describe his acting style.
And that year, they also film a little TV show called Vanderpump Rules, launching both of them much higher than Eric Roberts could ever hope to achieve in his abysmal career. And that is where we are going to end off today. Here on Eating for Free, the podcast recording live from the absolute edge of Tom Sandoval's IMDb cred dots.
I am obsessed with the Eric Roberts 1 degree separation to Tom Sandoval.
I put that at the end of this episode because I wanted to save the reveal.
You wanted to gag me.
I included nothing about it because you guys don't understand. Matt loves Eric Roberts. I think Eric Roberts is like your other man. Like there's like
absolutely not. He is so scary.
There's 3 people
he
in
frightens me. Like I have nightmares about him as
there is
the doctor.
3 people in this relationship, you, me, and Eric Roberts. So just a couple of his other credits that are like very minor credits. He is in a 2019 movie called Dying for a Baby. He is in a 2021 movie called The Wrong Real Estate Agent, starring Vivica A. Fox, which is interesting.
Okay.
And then he is in a 2021 movie called Scare Us, which is a horror anthology. And then most recently, he was in a movie called Tall, Dark, and Dangerous.
Wow.
Where
could have made that today.
Yeah. He stars in it. It's called Tall, Dark, and Dangerous. It stars him and a woman who falls for a dangerous man on the internet. And I mean, if there is a dangerous man on the internet, it is Tom Sandoval. So,
wow.
Woof. What are you feeling at the end of this episode? What are you feeling about the myth of Tom Sandoval?
The myth of Tom Sandoval, the idea of Tom Sandoval, the international theory of Tom Sandoval. I'm feeling shook. I'm feeling still haunted by the clip that we played earlier in the episode, of thinking that somehow reality TV was not going to put a cage on his career, yet was working on films like Playing with Fire and Puppet Master, parenthesis, Axis
of Evil.
Like, no shade, because I literally live for shitty horror movies and Lifetime originals. Literally gobble them up.
Yeah,
but
it's like your favorite thing.
I just don't see how people, like, the delusion to be doing that and think, yes, reality TV will surely help me get to more serious and more established kind of roles is a very fascinating idea. And it's kind of weird too, because I feel like the show, even though season 1, as I've been rewatching, is obviously kind of like, oh, they're struggling actors and they're trying to make it in the biz. Like, it's a big part of like kind of what it's about. I'm kind of shocked we didn't really see much of this. I mean, they do a little bit of like acting stuff in the beginning, but it completely falls off. Like the second this show starts, they have nothing else to do but like be full-time dedicated pretty much to the Vanderpump Rules universe. So I find it just very fascinating in a way that I was not prepared for, honestly.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's whoa.
You looking back at this episode? Whoa. Powerful.
Yeah, I mean, it is proof that if you tell something about yourself enough, it becomes true. And in the very beginning, you heard a little clip from him in which he said that he has always played villains and he's always played in scary movies and he's always been a bad guy. And it's interesting how, really, genuinely speaking, truth is much stranger than fiction. And also, we can manifest our dreams. And you learned that today on Oprah's Secret. Do you have anything else you want to add before we go?
No. Well, I'm still making my way through and almost done with Southern Hospitality season 1. Some people on the Patreon are asking us to cover it or like do a rewatch of it, because I think we've gotten some people hooked and they've started to see the other light. And I'm so happy for them.
Well, we're not going to do that, but I appreciate that everyone wants us to anyways. And let's go out on a bang. 3, 2, 1. It's our time. These are the best days of our lives. So just raise your glasses high. This one's for you tonight. Mwah. Goodbye. You've been listening to Eating for Free, a podcast created, co-hosted, written, researched, and produced by myself, Joan Summers, and Matthew Lawson, with original theme music by Sam Huntington of Crooks and Nannies. If you liked what you heard today, you can go to patreon.com/eatingforfree to get access to weekly bonus episodes, as well as access to my other podcast, Beautiful Women Updates, hosted by myself and Alex V. Green. You can also go to eatingforfree.com to get access to the links to our research from today's episode, as well as merch and so much more.